Hello, Andrew Doherty again, and as part of the Beoultna Festival I'm reading from my memoir of growing up in Cheek Point before a tide went out. And in this section I'm reading about nets and net making or net mending. Because we jammed fish in a village like Cheek Point, the constant repair and maintenance of nets was essential. Jamming fish was an expression used in trying to outfox the salmon, catching them in the bag of the nets, or trapping them as nets fell ashore. In Cheek Point, although we called it drift netting, the practice was a hybrid. Above us on the barrow, as well as on the shore, other traditional netsmen used techniques called snap netting and draft netting. Both relied on trapping. And although we called our own practice drift netting, it was more like the traditional techniques employed above us, encircling a fish and trying to ensnare them, as opposed to fish swimming blindly into nets and being enmeshed. This of course could happen too, but it depended on the type of tides and the wind, and it wasn't always possible. Repairing nets was a regular Saturday chore then, and we were often called on to act as a human nail, as they liked to put it. The meshes got ripped due to snagging the bottom, getting caught in the jetty, the engine propeller getting wrapped up in them, or being cut by one of the many ships in and out of the ports. Some skippers could overlook only the largest gap, while for others, as much as missing a half net mesh was unacceptable. These were the skippers you didn't want to get stuck with, as you could spend a day standing in the one spot without a break. Some skippers hauled out the nets from the boat and ranged them over again on the quayside or on the village green. The process was always the same. One person on the cork rope and the other on the lead rope, and as you ranged them along you looked carefully for a gap or a tear. Once found, the skipper would take out his knife, trim off and tidy up the hole, and with a mending needle set about remeshing the hole. In some cases it could take a minute, in others a heck of a lot longer. In all cases our job was to hold the net in a certain way. Very often we got no more than a grunt when it was time for us to shift, or to pull tighter, or to move a fraction to enable the skipper to see what he was doing. Once completed, we would stretch out the repair job, and then you would hear either a grunt of satisfaction or disgust, depending on how the job was perceived. And then it was back to the careful ranging on and on to the next hole. Some Saturdays could be spent entirely in this way, and after a while you learned to avoid the quays when such activities were taking place. It would be a few years before I had to learn the craft, and many more after that before I could claim to be able to repair a net in any kind of satisfactory way. Of course, in the 1990s, the nylon nets started to change, and before the decade was out, monofilament netting was legalised. Because these were practically invisible to the fish anyway, repairing holes became virtually a thing of the past. It was easier to pull the sections of a hole together with a string, or to cut out a section and replace it. And as part of the book, a local chap called Neil O'Driscoll done some wonderful sketches for me, and there's one of them there. Hopefully you can see it just as an example of what it was like. And there's an example of one of the mending needles that we used. Still have one. So thanks very much. I hope you enjoyed it.